The recent Morningstar 2015 Global Fund Investor Experience Report assigned South Africa a C rating. Now, the Association for Savings and Investments South Africa is annoyed. In fact, it's downright furious with what it says are fundamental inaccuracies contained in the report. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight, I'm joined in Johannesburg by Leon Campher, who is the Chief Executive of ASISA, and on Skype from Australia, Anthony Serhan, who's Managing Director of Research Strategy for the Asia-Pacific Morningstar region. Anthony Serhan, we'll get to you in just a moment. Leon Campher, why are you furious at Morningstar?
Well, Bruce, I wouldn't say furious, a little bit disappointed.
But in investment speak, that's absolutely spitting mad, isn't it? I mean, you guys are far too polite.
Look, I mean, let me just state right at the outset, it's completely Morningstar's right to do the research that they do and to publish the report that they did. That is absolutely their right, and we have no issue with that.
And just to get a bit of context, I mean, what's important about the fact is that the world looks at Morningstar research and looks at the investability of collective investment schemes around the world, and they've given us the second lowest rating they're possibly good as a country.
Yes, right. That is the case. Maybe if I could just comment on that. There were two categories in the Morningstar research paper that was published, where we picked up fundamental inaccuracies. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't know whether that would have affected the rating or not.
But what are the two categories? Let's move on to Anthony.
The one is where in their report they say they prefer domiciles with one regulator.
Okay.
They then go on to make a statement that ASISA is a self-regulatory body and is close to the fund industry. Now, fundamentally, that is inaccurate.
Right.
In South African law, you can only be self-regulatory if that is devolved upon you in law.
Okay, but you're not self-regulatory.
Absolutely
You're
not.
a representative organisation of the investment industry, and at the moment you've got the Financial Services Board
as our only regulator.
As your regulator, right.
So that's the one.
Okay.
In the other instance, they made a statement that the bulk of the flows go to the major financial institutions who have tied agents, which question marks the advice or the independence of advice.
Okay, good. Those are the 2 points with which you take issue. Anthony Serhan, let's talk to you in Australia this evening. It's nice to have you with us. Thank you for coming on. Firstly, is the Association of Savings and Investments South Africa being just a little bit too sensitive about these issues?
I think I'll come back to the 2 points first, but overall, I think it's important to make two points about the way we do this. First of all, this is a relative grading system. It is not meant to be an absolute score. So we look at all the factors, and there's 80 different factors, or over 80 factors that we score. We calculate an average. The average receives a ranking of B-. So, and that's on a 12-point scale. Okay, so C+, which South Africa received on in a number of areas, is probably just one notch below average. So look, South Africa has appeared, in the middle of the pack on a number of these factors. So that's the first thing. On those specific points, look, it's a huge report by volume. As I said, it covers a lot of areas. The first one about the single regulator, that is indeed our understanding, and that is the way that we scored South Africa with a single regulator. I think in the section that Leon references, we talk about the role of the FSB. We have an independent paragraph talking about ASISA. Maybe the use of the term self-regulatory may have been confusing, but that was only in the context of the sorts of codes that ASISA puts out in the context of its membership. It wasn't meant to imply that ASISA is a regulator of the industry.
And then what about the lack of independence of the advice mechanisms in South Africa, talking about the fact that most products are sold by tied agents, and therefore you're concerned about the lack of independence in the advice space?
That one really comes down to what we're talking about when we say most. First of all, the openness of a system is an important component of the sales area that we score in this report. And by openness, we mean we want investors to have many ways of accessing a fund. We want them to go to platforms that are typically open architecture. And I think South Africa it is a relatively advanced and mature market. So compared to a number of other markets, South Africa does have many ways in which you can access a fund. And what we were talking about there is whether or not the predominant amount of money flows into platforms that are closed architecture.
Okay, quick question then, and Anthony, sorry to rush you, but we are on short time. Would it have made the slightest bit of difference had you classed those 2 points raised by ASISA differently? Would it have made a difference to the overall rating? Would it have taken it from C+ to B-, which is the global average?
No, it wouldn't have.
Leon Campher, your response?
My response, Anthony, is very simply the following. If you are doing a report, country by country, please just do the decent thing to check whether the statements made in the report are accurate. This is not the first time it's happened. We've taken it up with Morningstar in South Africa in 2013 and 2011.
Aren't you being oversensitive? I mean, the question was deliberately provocative to Anthony earlier, saying, is ASISA being oversensitive? These are factors which are, you've raised them before, absolutely right, but they don't make a fundamental difference to the overall outcome. And you seem to be taking issue with 2 points out of a universe of 80, which wouldn't have led to an upgrade anyway.
No, I'm not worried about the upgrade.
Okay.
At all. As I said right at the outset, Morningstar has the fullest right to do what they do. But then we would ask humbly that statements made in their report should be checked. Because the point I'm making to Anthony is, if you call us self-regulatory, you don't understand the legal domicile of South Africa.
But then does that then go to undermine the credibility of the entire report? Because if you're making some small fundamental errors, what else are you not understanding in the South African investment landscape?
So
is that the point you're making?
Yeah, let me also talk about open architecture, the flows. It is quite clear, we get flow data from our members. Morningstar doesn't. They derive the flow data. The question I'm just asking is, if you're talking about open architecture, if you're talking, as they stated, advice and tied agents, I just need to be explained how come the bulk of the inflows and the bulk of the assets right now are in 7 mancos of the top 12 that don't have tied agency relationship.
Let's give Anthony a turn. Hello, Anthony. Thanks. You've heard what Leon Campher's got to say. Your response to that?
Yeah, so my response would be, we welcome the information that Leon's putting forward.
For the second time, third time, Leon Campher is gesturing to me. It's the third time that correction has been passed to your colleagues in Johannesburg. So big slap on wrist all round on that particular point.
Part of this, we would, I would love to see the information. Part of this comes down to what word do you attach to 40% of the market, or 50% of a market, or 60% of the market. I think some of this is the language that we've used that's creating the issue. And personally, Leon, I would appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and understand this more from my own perspective. Look, we put this report out. We don't sell this report. We don't try and get consulting work off it. We're just trying to create a dialogue which we hope makes for a better market for investors, which will make for a larger industry. So we welcome the feedback from Leon. If we have made mistakes in the past, we will take that on the chin. We just want to move forward and actually talk about the areas where we think we can do a better job.
I mean, does a report like this do damage then, in your mind, to the South African investment industry, Leon?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that.
Strongly enough to raise the issue which suggests you believe it does.
I think it does. I think it does because we've been inundated by telephone calls, what's happening, etc., etc. Now, once again, I go back to what I said. I would love to engage with Morningstar. I would love to engage with Anthony.
We'll connect you. We'll connect you. Let's take that as a given.
All we're saying is, are we being ignored? Because we've raised these issues prior to this with Morningstar in South Africa. And I don't care if well, I don't like a C, but if it doesn't affect the rating, that's also fine. But then don't publish a report and a media release based on the report in South Africa where, whether you meant it or not, there are fundamental inaccuracies.
Okay. That point is well made. I mean, I think, Anthony, you guys are keen to get it right. I'm absolutely certain the credibility of the Morningstar report is paramount. Are there some fundamental issues with the South African investment community and the investment environment with which you are more seriously concerned? Or do we generally sort of limp along okay?
I think no. I think there's some really good parts of South Africa. I think there are some areas that the industry could look at. I think it's great that the industry is looking at the point of sale disclosure documents, and new regulations have come into play, which brings South Africa more into line with global standards. That's a really important step forward. But there are still other aspects of disclosure where South Africa probably isn't at a global level. And look, I'll come back to that and saying we're putting that information out there. The reality is industries function and go on without that. We're just trying to make a case that we think some areas could do better.
Yeah,
and I think if you look at the cost,
we need to leave it there, Anthony. And I thank you for coming through for us this evening, Leon. This is about keeping an industry that is in the spotlight globally, honest, isn't it? And Morningstar is doing a good job. But you want to pick up some of the issues.
There are quite clearly issues in any domicile ours specifically that can improve. It's a journey that we are embarking on with our regulator, the policymaker, in terms of disclosure, reflecting costs accurately. A lot of work's been done on that. But it's not just in our hands.
Absolutely not. But the South African investment industry has got a lot of work to do in terms of disclosure for people to know exactly what they're paying and what they're getting in return, and understanding that total expense ratios isn't the full fee. There are issues. They're big issues.
No, there are issues which are being addressed in a roadmap which is, to some extent, the progress is determined by the regulator and the policymaker.
We must leave it there. Leon Campher, thank you so much. Leon Campher is the Chief Executive of ASISA. And on Skype from Australia, Anthony Serhan, thanks very much for joining us this evening, Managing Director of Research Strategy for Asia Pacific at Morningstar. He and Leon Campher, no doubt, will be having a phone call late into this evening. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Good night, goodbye, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.